all those who are operating in the constabulary on the front line, if you like, carry a notebook. Now the reason they carry a notebook is so they can make notes. That's why it's called a notebook. It's not only there just for them to make notes of what they say and what you say. You can ask them to take a note. We request. But remember, they are also the servants. So we request them to take a note. So one of the things you can do is say, are you acting under your oath of office at this time? Whatever the answer, could you please record your answer in your notebook, because I will be asking you that same question in court. Because if they're not operating to their oath of office, they're operating in deception, which is tantamount to fraud. They are defrauding people. They are being paid to do a job, and they're not doing it according to the auspices of how they're meant to.
I know that, like now we have policy enforcement officers, and that they were changing the oaths of those officers to oath swear to uphold the corporation, and I know those oaths were stopped because they needed that. They needed to ascend from Queen Elizabeth. Have you checked to see if those oaths have been changed? Have you found any?
It matters not if they have been.
No.
Because if they have changed the oath to something else, then they're operating unlawfully.
Yeah. So we just keep
they're
on
imposing.
To this,
they're
whether
invading.
they're enforcement officers.
This is the oath only oath that they're meant to be operating to.
Yeah.
That's the one we hold them to. Now, if they've been tricked into swearing an oath, which is what happens with a lot of people, get tricked into swearing an oath to the corporation, that's deception, that's fraud. You know, that's why they use the name of the corporation, Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand. It was part of the deception. But you ask people who have sworn an oath, say, did you swear this oath to Queen Elizabeth II, or did you swear it to a bunch of pirates? You know, what's in their heart when they're swearing the oath? But who have they got in mind when they're swearing the oath? Elizabeth II. You can't say, we tricked you, now you're actually our slave.
Yeah,
well, they do that all the time anyway. But
take her right out.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
They're actually trying to destroy the documents that are actually in place through a lot of nefarious means. And it can only happen if we allow it. When enough people allow it. So when enough people standing up, oh, no, actually, we've got international documentation in place and we stand to that. Suddenly it puts the whole thing in a whole different perspective, and it makes it very difficult for them to continue to operate the way they are, because they're being more and more revealed each time. So that's why we're here, absolutely operating as peacefully as we are able. That's why we aren't rude when we go into courts. You know, we know when the judge is out of his oath of office. We know when the constabulary is out of their oath of office. We don't vilify them for it. We just try to educate them. Bring it to their attention, because that's what you do as a sovereign. If I'm conducting myself in a way that may be causing harm to another, I would hope somebody would bring it to my attention and then give me the opportunity to change my behaviour. So we just apply the same thing. You know, we know the judge is up there, we know he's out of his oath of office, we know he's operating in a secret jurisdiction, but he can't bullshit the universe. He can't bullshit us anymore either, which they find is a bit of a conundrum. And we don't get excited, we don't shout, we don't swear. We had a situation where we went into court where the judge asked us, are you challenging the jurisdiction? We just replied, oh no man, we're not here to challenge the lawful jurisdiction. Lawful jurisdiction of Queen Elizabeth II, granted under the privilege of the 1840 Te Tireni Te Waitangi internationally recognised documentation. We're not here to challenge Queen Elizabeth II's jurisdiction. Absolutely not. She has privilege, she carries the mantle of the privilege of governance granted by her ancestors. The question we're asking is, are you acting in her honour, or are you not? That's the question. So we're not there to challenge the jurisdiction. And a lot of this is coming up in courts now, where challenge of jurisdiction. No, we're not there challenging that Elizabeth has a lawful jurisdiction. Of course she does. We stand to the documents of our ancestors. But is her practitioner operating in her honour? Or are they operating to someone else? Because if they're operating to anybody else, then they are, one, in dishonour, and two, they're operating in fraud, and it's a crime against humanity. Because they're actually using their fraud to try and enslave, so that becomes a crime against humanity. So we need to start calling things for the way they are. Because it's when you call things for the way they are, and you speak the truth of the matter, what you're doing is actually shining a light on it. And as you know that I've had cockroach invasion, turn the light on, watch the cockroaches scuttle. So I'll just do a quick recap So this is why I use a proclamation. This is why then there's others have as well. A proclamation of self-determination and individual sovereignty. This steers away from, because a lot of people, as soon as you talk about sovereignty, what's being programmed into them as kings and queens. Okay. And that deception has been carried on for quite some time, much to the detriment actually of humanity as a whole. So it's individual sovereignty. So I just proclaim that I have the right of self-determination. There's my name, that's who I'm known as, that's who I'm seen through. And I'm just proclaiming that my absolute, natural, ancient and unalienable right of self-determination and my absolute sovereignty over my life and property. Now anybody can come up, and as I say, anybody can come up and have a go at rebutting the proclamation. But they can't, I mean, you can't just walk up and say, oh, that's a load of crap, I don't agree with that. That's not a rebuttal. Okay. You've got to rebut it to an exacting point of law. Your name is not your property because we have authority over your name. How? How do you have authority over my name? Where's your documentation? Where's your proof? Where is your substantiation of your claim? Because I proclaim my name as my property. Can't be anybody else's. It's mine. Given to me by my parents. So this is why I use the proclamation. It gives me the ground, the knowing upon which I stand. And as I was saying before, with the constitutional order, because I am a member of a proclaimed hapu. And this is why I brought this up again, because you'll have more clarity now after we've had a look at having had a look at the constitutional order. Therefore be it known that I, Marcellus Rex, living on the land, and am of my free will, and recognising their sovereignty, do stand with the honourable people, because they've proclaimed that they will live in honour. So they're honourable people. Okay? Te hapu o ngā uri o Hawane, Haora, Hawane o Nu Tireni. That's one of the descendants of. Being a proclaimed sovereign hapu of the Sovereign Order of Nu Tireni, lawfully constituted to the internationally recognised proclamation, He Wakaputanga o Te Rangatira-tanga o Nu Tireni, 1835. With full acknowledgement and agreeance with Te Tiriti o Waitangi, 1840, and exercising their self-determination through their natural and ancient right of their hapu kawa tikanga and customary usages, and having publicly proclaimed their absolute sovereignty over their lives and property and territory, thus I, Marcellus Rex de Pavelly of Te Hapu, o Hawane, Haora, Hawane o Nu Tireni, standing in the light of our Creator and to the best of my collective abilities, are fully committed to upholding our self-determination, our natural sovereignty, and the honour and manner of the stated documents as an agreeance and affirmation of our ancestors, and that I do live my life in honour, conducting and determining my affairs in truth and integrity and as peaceably as I am able to the best of my ability. So that's a statement of fact. That's what I do. So in my personal proclamation, what I'm doing is I'm saying who I'm standing with, and that I actually acknowledge that there's a constitutional order. You know, working on proclamation with somebody who's not a member of a proclaimed hapu, but acknowledges that there is a constitutional order in the land, and that's what they put in their proclamation. I acknowledge there is a constitutional order in this land, in this territory, being 1835, and I acknowledge the agreement of the parties of our ancestors being Te Tiriti of 1840, and there's a heap of those of us who do not have a direct affiliation by blood through to the Tangata Whenua who actually acknowledge that. Because why? Because that's what my ancestors agreed to, and I think it's a really good agreement. So, as I say, if you don't wish to operate in sovereign capacity, that's your right, absolutely. It's your right to make the choice. You can still put in a proclamation of self-determination. Because that is your right. It's your Creator-given right. That's your foundation upon which you stand. Because we can turn this around. I mean, we've got more than enough intelligence in this room alone to operate and do things a hell of a lot better than what's being done to us now. With corrupt monetary systems, corrupt judiciary, corrupt constabulary. And yet we've got a hell of a lot of people within those very institutions who are doing the best they can to uphold their oaths, doing the best they can by the knowledge they have to do what they believe is right. It's just that a lot of them have been deceived as into what their roles are. So, for us it's just, we're standing to our right. That's it. There's plenty of room for anybody else and everybody else to do the same. Because what we see is that we have that responsibility. Because if we don't do this, then the chains of slavery are going to hang heavily upon the shoulders of our children. And that's a really bad karma juju buzz. Don't want to go there.
Strength in numbers.
It's all about unity. It doesn't mean we have to absolutely agree with everybody else, but one thing that unifies us all is one, we're members of the human family, two, we're part of the social memory complex that is humanity, and we have the right of self-determination. If that's not enough to unify us, what the hell is? So it's actually up to us to affect the change. And we can do it in so many ways. By using this and operating from here. Computer, programmer. So, over the next few days, there will be various templates, if you like, of this going up online. We're just in the process of setting up a specific web page, because at the moment Universal Sovereign is on Facebook page. It's attached to my... Now, a lot of people get really paranoid about Facebook and the phone calls and all this, you've got to be careful, The SIS are listening to you. Well, be thankful that at least one government department is. because nobody else bloody seems to be. Look, this is all part of the whole fear construct, But it's also the greatest. Social media is one of the greatest ways of disseminating ideas. We put out an idea of, who's seen the movie Pay It Forward? Great movie.
Yeah.
Well, pay has certain connotations to it, so what we did was we put a bit of a thing together we called Gifted On. And we put it out through the Facebook. Look for an opportunity during your day where you can help somebody that you wouldn't normally interact with. And if they thank you for it, you just say Gifted On. And if they ask you, what do you mean? Just say, well, you look for an opportunity where you can help somebody. And when they thank you, just say, Gifted On. And it was interesting to see that within quite a short space of time, we were starting to get bits coming up in the media. One was a situation, I think it was a solo mum with a couple of kids, realised she hadn't quite enough money on her EFTPOS card to pay for the groceries, started taking things out of the trolley. Guy reached down, he says, pay it all with that. And when the woman thanked her, he said, Gifted On. Because how we think about each other, that actually helps determine our realities. Okay? So with Gifted On, I give one conscious thought of well-being to the water, at least once a day. One conscious thought of well-being to the earth. Conscious thought of well-being to humanity. Know that we all stand here in the light of the Creator. Another one we put out was Wish You Well. Start at the beginning of the month, if you like. First day, find something or someone that you wouldn't normally interact with and wish them well. Day 2, do it twice. Do it 3 times. If you forget one day, it doesn't matter. Forgive yourself, move on. Have another go. Because what people are starting to do now is actually deprogram themselves. Because they're starting to get more and more of an understanding of who they are and the power that they hold within themselves with the full power of thought. So we put out this thing, Wish You Well, and I've had people come back to me and say it was absolutely amazing. They did it for a month. And they've all come back and said the same thing. They just see the world so differently now. And the world sees you differently. Because that's the least you can do as you're going about your day, just wish people well. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what we want? Don't we all want to live in peace and harmony and, share in the abundance and the diversity? And, imagine a life without fear. Imagine a life spent in absolute enjoyment of all that this life, this physical dimension has to offer. We're going to stop allowing our enjoyment to be parasited off us by a few. and the enslavement of our children. Because all I'm saying, I'm just drawing a line in the sand. Our ancestors draw a line in the sand when they came together with these documents and they said, you shall not pass. They put in place the provision to stop the colonisation of humanity, to stop the parasites eating our children, because that's what's happening. So that's why, to me, it's actually, as I say, it's very simple, and possibly for me because I've been doing it for a bit now. They had to be simple. If it wasn't simple, I wouldn't be able to follow it. So, put your proclamation, if that's what you feel, if you feel strongly enough about it, put your proclamation in place. What you're doing is saying and putting it out into the public domain that which you believe in your heart anyway.
Thanks, Mark.
See you, Josephine. Okay? So, as I say, these are going to go up on the website as it happens. It's going to unfold, which is what I was going to write. So we've got, excuse my writing, I was a doctor in a previous life. And that's on Facebook. And it's a community page, because I'm not actually very technically savvy. It's attached to my Facebook page, which is, I think, under Marcel's. Okay. What we're doing is putting up a web page which is all lowercase, of course. .org, I think it is. Was it org.nz? Anyway, it's going to be up under Universal Sovereigns. I'll have a look. Yeah. I'll have a look. And that'll be coming online in the near future. Now, what we're looking at doing with the proclamations is we actually have email trees available, and I'm not quite sure how to do that technically. But we're looking at sending the proclamations to, I'll be putting my updated version in, to every public official. That includes councils. Originally I sent my proclamation to Shauna Lyas, because she's the Chief Justice, because the matter was about court. And what we found when I put that proclamation in, like up until that time we'd had a lot of call-overs, and one of them, as soon as I stepped into the court, the judge, get into the dock. I said, excuse me, sir, get into the dock. Excuse me, sir, get into the dock. So I said, well, with all due courtesy and respect to your office, sir, are you acting under your oath of office at this time? Put them in the holding cells. Now, my 10-year-old son was in court, because how are our children supposed to learn these things about our rights in courts and how to stop the corruptions if we don't teach them? Okay? And the look on his face when the security guard came across and the police officer came across, both of whom we knew anyway, and the whole act went on, arm up behind the back, gently I might add, and marched out the back door of the court, and as soon as I'm out the back door of the court, it's down the stairs, thanks Mark, do you want to sell on your own or do you want somebody to chat with? Because it's an act, because there's people sitting in the public gallery and they want to instill fear in those people. Then they sent the duty solicitor down on a fishing trip to find out how much I knew. Don't send an amateur after a professional. And all I did was ask the man if he was acting under his oath of office at this time, and he is actually obliged to do that, to operate under his oath of office at this time. Now, if he takes umbrage at that and throws me in a holding cell, that straight away tells me, well, obviously you're not. Now, what I said to the duty solicitor was, the man has sworn an oath, otherwise surely he wouldn't be there. I said, you swore an oath, do you uphold your oath? You swore an oath to the British Accreditation Registry. He goes, well, I didn't swear an oath to anything British. I said, but you're a member of the bar, are you not? You're a solicitor, member of the bar, yes. He didn't even know who he had sworn his oath to. That's like, you couldn't make this stuff up. So anyway, after an hour, back up to the court, and because what the duty solicitor was trying to find out was how much I knew, and I wasn't about to tell him everything I knew. But anyway, the judge was of quite a different demeanour then, because I had actually informed the duty solicitor. When the duty solicitor said to me, I've seen this judge put people away for 3 months for contempt of court, and I said, well, contempt of court, what, civil contempt or criminal contempt? He goes, well, it doesn't matter. Oh dear. Oh dear. Absolutely it matters. So this is where we get into the situation of actually, this is where we gain a lot of understanding that a lot of the functionaries within the public service don't know their job. Now they have a responsibility to actually find out and do it, but the people above them also have a responsibility to impart the truth to them. And what we found out was when I put the proclamation into court, it went in at 9 o'clock when the registrar's window opened, the call over was at 10, and a lot changed. When the previous call over had been chucked down in the holding cells, we went in, sat there in court, my partner and I. Security guard came in and he said, has your case been called yet? We said, no. He said, oh, something's up. Off he went. He said, wait here. Back he came, took us through the back of the court, put us in, he said, you've been shifted to courtroom 1. There's a jury trial going to start today, but your call over's first. So when the judge entered the court, and when the judge enters the court, I stand. And people go, oh, you're ceding your authority. No, I'm not. I'm not. I'll tell you when I cede my authority. Can't be tricked off me. No, that's deception, that's fraud. No, I stand in honour of what our ancestors did. I stand in honour of the office of a justice who's there to help restore harmony between the parties. That's what I stand in honour of. I'm not ceding anything. It's a deception. It's crap. So when the judge walked in with the court, we noticed a phenomenal change. And what it was from that moment forth, we were actually attended to very courteously, very politely, and there was all sorts of help came our way. Now what I found fascinating with this was because I'd chosen to represent myself, to present myself in this case, one, I wasn't eligible for legal aid. I'm not talking about the money side of things. No one came to me and said, oh, Mr. Pauley, you're presenting yourself in this situation. Here is how you've put stuff into the court for evidence. Here are the rules and procedures for this jurisdiction. I actually asked, I said, please provide the rules and procedures for statute jurisdiction. There aren't any. They couldn't provide them. They make it up as they go along. So then when you get into the whole tax system, that is where it gets really nasty. Because there's a whole system put in place, and yet under the 1994 Tax Administration Act, which I suggest you read, it actually says in there, the Commissioner's job is to promote compliance, especially voluntary compliance. What's voluntary mean? Of your free will. What does to comply mean? To act in a prescribed manner, or to a prescribed manner. So the only way that you could logically read this, because at the beginning of the Act it doesn't say who the Act binds, it only says that in one section where it says that Commissioner can use the district courts notwithstanding the district court rules. In other words, they can use the buildings, but no rules of evidence and fact and truth apply. You can use the district court notwithstanding the district court rules. Okay? But it stipulates in there voluntary compliance. And because at the beginning of the Act it doesn't stipulate who the Act binds, therefore it binds no one. Surely. Otherwise it would say who it binds. However, if you volunteer to comply with any part of that Act, you're agreeing to be bound by the Act. So I just wrote it to the Tax Department and I said, it is my understanding, and is it not true that the Land Revenue relies upon voluntary compliance, therefore I voluntarily choose not to comply. If you can show how I am obliged or bound to pay you or give you anything in any way, shape or form, please do so, or forever keep the peace. Until my understanding is rebutted to an exacting point of law. It prevails in truth and law. It must do. If they can't tell me how I am obliged to pay them anything.
Do they ever reply?
No. Which is something that you find often happens regularly. They choose to ignore because actually they don't know what to do about it. And they don't want it becoming revealed to one and all. That's why I put it, until my understanding is rebutted to an exacting point of law, it prevails. This is what I did with the district commander over the registration, the area commanders. This is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, I believe these are my rights because of this, this and this. Please rebut my understanding. No, sent me a nice letter back. Yeah, got your letter. If you've got any more, any questions you want to raise it with the police and with the Infringement Bureau. So I acknowledged the receipt of my letter, didn't rebut one point in it, so it prevails, the truth of law. Because if the area commander of the constabulary can't tell me how I'm wrong or how I'm obliged to do this, this, this and that, then surely my understanding must be right. Okay? So, because they use the system of ignoring stuff, that's why I always put the question, and I'm asking a question, and I say, until my understanding is rebutted, it must prevail. Well, that's logical, surely. That's why they tend to ignore them, but in ignoring them, they're actually upholding them. You know, it was like with my student loan. My understanding, never heard another word from them, never come to collect. Because it's our right to choose who we go into contract with. Because when we go into an agreement, we are binding ourselves to that agreement. So that's why having a binding agreement must be done with free will. It must be done with full disclosure. There's no deception. As soon as there's deception or trickery involved, it can't be lawful.
Does it have to be written?
Oh no, you can have a verbal agreement. Absolutely. I mean, that's where the phrase "my word is my bond" came from. That's how sovereigns behave. You know, you say something, you do it. Mm-hmm. If you can't fulfil what you've agreed to do, just explain that you can't, because there's always circumstances operate out of our control that often means we can't fulfil what we've agreed to do. So you just front up and say, hey, sorry, I wasn't able to do that because of such and such and such, and renegotiate. Because we actually want to live in peace and harmony with each other. Most people do. And that's just a means of doing it. So that's why we as I say, went back to the proclamation, went to a proclamation, because all I'm doing is publicly proclaiming
Your sovereignty.
So it's there for all to see. So it's a little bit difficult for them to argue with them. As I say, that doesn't stop them enforcing their will or using force over you. But there's nothing the pirate's going to do to you that they haven't already decided to do. Yeah. So we just get on and do what we need to do, what we're responsible for doing. And that's preserving something, life for our kids, for their enjoyment. So when it came to the tax issue, now the interesting thing is with tax, you know, as soon as I say to people I don't pay income tax, a lot of people go, oh yeah, but you want to use the hospitals, you want to use the roads. Well, I choose to continue to pay GST, and you know, there's fuel tax and there's all these sorts of things. But what a lot of people aren't realising is that they are actually spending nearly half of their lives working for a bunch of pirates who are providing no benefit for them. And because they can't see it, because they've grown up with this belief that, you know, everybody has to pay tax, it becomes an ingrained ideology, it becomes actually part of their structure. However, statement of fact, you do not need to have tax. There has never been a need for tax. If we can develop a system that enslaves us as well as the one we're allowed to enslave us, then surely we've got more than enough intelligence to actually create a system that we can all, including the next generations to come, live in peace and harmony and absolute abundance. The question is, why isn't that happening? Because we have this control of this parasite. It's controlling the place where we go to resolve differences. And it's operating in a punitive manner instead of a restorative manner. Now, how many great ideas are out there that get stopped by legislation, by somebody else's rules, by a council bylaw, you know, a servant of the people? You know, and again, that's why it comes back to all rates, all taxes are voluntary. They have to be voluntary, because if they're not, you're someone's slave. It's that simple. Now, I believe that if we're living in a society and a community and that sort of thing, that we have a certain responsibility to help within that structure that we've chosen to live in. But nobody has the right to come and tell me how, or that I have to pay them something in order to be able to do this. That's slavery.